Hi, how's it going? I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube, joined by my buddy Butch Rosenbalm and my buddy Patrick McCray. We're here to talk about the movie Shaft, starring Richard Roundtree in 1971. So, guys, the opening theme of this movie to me is as iconic as Jaws, Star Wars. It really brings to life the character as much as Richard Roundtree does. And I love how they shoot the overhead and then you see Richard's character coming up from the subway, and that's when the theme starts. What did you guys think of this?
Butch?
The theme is amazing. My first note, that theme. Um, it's probably better known than the movie is, to be truthful. And yeah, I agree. It's right. It's like the second most important thing after Richard Roundtree, maybe third after Gordon Parks, the director. But yeah, it's a classic. I knew the song long before I knew there was a film, but also this came out in 71, and in 71 I turned 2, so that's not very hard to not know.
Patrick.
I it's a great piece of music on a lot of levels. I think it won the Academy Award. And one of the things that I really love about it, beyond the fact that it is in an age when movie music was, with the exception of like the theme to Patton, starting to die, thanks to Simon and Garfunkel introducing source music and just, kind of like songs. Yeah, it's a song, but it has, is very specific to this movie. It is very specific to the character, and it is so incredibly propulsive that even though, the average shot length is different than we have now, and some of the standards of action editing and ADR and stuff like that is different than it is now, and that the movie, compared to the polish that we give things now, is pretty rough around the edges in ways they didn't want it to be rough around the edges, if they had the tools of today. In all of those things, for an audience of today might slow the movie down a little bit, unfairly, because modern audiences are. This defies that. This is just like being shot out of a cannon. It's great, and one of the things I really like about this piece of music is how it combines several different musical styles. And, just when we think it's about, kind of the waka waka sort of sound, suddenly, these orchestral horns are coming in, and it takes on this grandeur. I mean, this legitimately big grandeur that tells you this movie, like anything that you've seen, and that it is going to take what, with other filmmakers with smaller budgets and less taste, would have been a series of kind of cliches, arguably kind of pandering cliches, and it says, we're going to have, this very pop sound, and it has absolutely no conflict with having the sense of orchestral size at the same point that tells you this is a character to be reckoned with. This is a character with almost kind of a mythic quality. Gerd. And that you are transported into a perspective on a very gritty, arguably kind of ugly, porn-strewn slice of New York. And you were being told by the film that something a lot bigger and more powerful and nobler in its own loose, easy way is going to be happening. And what a musical accomplishment.
Yeah, it's really, really good too how they don't have the character talk right away. The themes, in many ways, is introducing you to Richard Roundtree Shaft in every way. That he's one bad mother, you know. Watch your mouth, but is really good, and it's one of those movies that, from a cinema standpoint, to where you like. We've talked about westerns with cinema, with music and the way things get shot. Once Upon a Time on the West is an example where the horse is going along and it plays with the melody. With this, with the way they shoot New York City and shoot Richard Roundtree walking through New York City, it feels like it's going with the melody as it goes, if that makes sense.
It's a perfect blend, and it transforms what with other pieces of music would either be something kind of dreary or expected. I mean, we expect pop music or urban music, whatever, and to have the movie say that's not enough. That's not enough for this character, and don't write it off as just that. We're gonna get some pop, like a pop combo to, kind of play some stuff in the background, and that's fine. And it would have done, but that's a lot more than that. And yes, it absolutely informs the character and the sense of pace of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say one other thing?
Yeah.
The lyrics, which can get, and we talked about this right before the podcast, which can sort of descend into callback cliche land because they kind of have taken on a life of their own outside of the movie. One of the things I think that's also important in talking about this movie right at the get-go is how fresh it was, and that having slang, bad mother and stuff like that was absolutely unheard of in films prior to that, and the presence of it was really, really new, was really revolutionary. That this movie 1971. So what's that? Is that 3 years or 4 years after 1968? 69, 70, 70. 3 years. 3 years after the assassination of Martin Luther King, after the assassination of Malcolm X, which brings to mind the very short but necessary kind of superstar careers that those guys had in revolutionizing and liberating American culture, and just how political, how revolutionary all of that was in this moment. I don't think, I mean, I can talk about academically, but I can't talk about what it must have felt like, and what that must have been like, except that even to this day, I don't think we have anything to compare to what, even hearing some of those lyrics and hearing the ideas in those lyrics expressed, must have been like. And that's huge, and that's really cool. So this was a really revolutionary movie at an incredibly incendiary time. And it's weird. Dark Shadows was still on the air, and I think of that as being just a totally different time period. And And so, hot on the heels of things like that, this was. So there we go.
You know what it made me think of though too? There was when I watched this as a kid. Again, I grew up around grandparents who did not mind letting their grandkids listen to stuff that was a lot older than what they were, or see stuff that was a lot older than what they were. Um, my grandfather was listening to Bad Leroy Brown by Jim Croce. And this was prior to me watching Shaft. And then Shaft was coming on later that day. And he said, "Have you ever seen the movie Shaft?" And I said, "No." He goes, "Oh, you could tell your mother I'll let you watch it. She lets you watch a lot worse stuff than Shaft." And I'm like, "What?"
House. Some hip grandparents.
Look who their daughter was. But
I'm Jewel, for a moment I got really confused.
Well, no, my mom's parents showed me Shaft. Again, my grandfather showed me westerns, but he wanted to show me Shaft, so he did. And when he was listening earlier in the day, when he was dropping my grandmother off to work, he was listening to Jim Croce's Bad Leroy Brown had come on the radio. And for whatever reason, when I heard Bad Leroy Brown, I thought that song would be in Shaft. And no, it isn't, but it's sort of, in a way, when you watch Shaft, I kept thinking of Jim Croce's Bad Leroy Brown. Though the song that Isaac Hayes does is more fitting. It's really, I really like
keep going.
I really like how when he showed me this, I was really shocked at the way they shot this film and the way the music went with it. Because though I was used to westerns doing this, I had not seen an urban film, and that's what this is, an urban western in a way, that I had not seen a film do this up until this point. Again, I had not seen a lot of other things yet though either. But this was really unique for seeing this when I did at 9. And I loved how Richard Roundtree, how he dressed, how he looked. He represented his character, the way Richard Roundtree played Shaft. It fit the song. Like if you said Isaac Hayes Shaft song, you say Richard Roundtree. And it really it's a compliment to both actor and Isaac Hayes, songwriter and singer.
You don't say Robert Goulet. You don't say Bob Goulet. Bad Leroy Brown, it's a good song. I think it may be just a little too good natured and a little too, bouncy and, this is a song and this is a movie that means business.
Yeah.
It absolutely, it's got some bounce to it, but it's a ballistic bounce.
Yeah. Go ahead, Butch.
I'm just listening to the YouTube guys. I agree with everything you say. I mean, I don't know when I first saw this. Not that you've asked that question yet, but I'll go ahead and break the seal. But seeing this film, rewatching it this week, the very first scene before the music starts, it has a shot of, I believe, Times Square. I don't know New York that well. And for a second, I thought about the opening scene of the Omega Man with Charlton Heston with the deserted Los Angeles. So there was almost a weird little contrast there. But this film, Patrick's right. I mean, this is a serious film. It's going to kick you in the balls, and I think this film actually started my love for soul, R&B, whatever you want to call the thing to Shaft and associated music. Because maybe even played into me later becoming a drummer, because it got the rhythm, and it's just slowly builds. And this movie I grew to love and a lot of people don't like this term, but I don't know what else term to use. So Patrick, can you tell me if there's another one? I love blaxploitation films. And I do not say that in any sort of insulting, disregarding manner. I think they're great. I remember watching this and I was just like, this is going to sound dumb, and anybody watches this that doesn't believe me, that's fine, but it's the truth. I didn't notice everybody but the police guys were black. It didn't register. I was just watching a good film with good actors telling an interesting story. I didn't think about that till later. And it's a really good film.
Yeah.
Well, and thanks to, I think largely thanks to Shaft, there was at one time a lot more Black American cinema, and so I think I'm just guessing here. But the idea of a strongly Black ensemble was not as, it's always going to be a political thing, but it was not as foreign because there was more of it, in following it. And I would say that because a lot of those movies were made, because a lot of those movies were made, I think, on a lower budget. And so they had to have a very immediate appeal. There was a lot more fun that could be had. There were, I think, because of the relatively smaller budgets, there was less to lose, and there was more immediacy. These were movies that were being really churned out, and what can we do? There's a great sense of competition, and what can we do to absolutely put entertainment first, and grab audiences, and especially today, when every movie has cost $200 million, and so fewer movies are being made, more pressure is put behind them. There's absolutely no risk. There's absolutely no fun. In these days, if you have a producer and he's making 6 movies in a year, no one wants a movie to make a loss. But if he's not spending a lot of money on them and he's got 5 other films that are hits, okay, it's all about risk. It's all about what's new. What have we not offered? And this is also coming out of a time when Hollywood had pretty much imploded, and we may be heading towards something like that again. You had, especially 20th Century Fox, was just drowning in red ink. They had made Dr. Dolittle, which was a massive flop. They had made Cleopatra, which was a massive flop. They were completely out of touch with what anyone wanted to see a movie about. The people they were making movies for were getting old, and they would just soon stay home and watch Bonanza. And so, Hollywood by necessity had to, basically reconcile themselves to the fact that the people who were, in their 20s when Ben-Hur came out, they were not getting out of the house now to see a film. And also because you had this explosion of the suburbs, what was referred to as white flight out of the cities. You had, you still had all these downtown movie theaters, but the population demographic had changed pretty significantly, and that created a demand for a new type of movie. And Shaft was right there, and the fact that Shaft was at least released by MGM, if not produced by MGM, just shows that studios were finally getting the message, thanks to Easy Rider, which is a couple of years before, and they were having to take more risks and do more interesting things.
There's on the Criterion disc here. There's a couple of on the supplements. So a lady saying, a critic saying that Hollywood forgets that black people exist until they need a hit, and I think that's that's part of where this came in. Like Patrick's saying, the older I mean, I'm older. I don't go to the theater as much as I used to. Patrick knows some friends of mine. We used to go just about every weekend. Mm-hmm. One, I don't have the money.
I see. Maybe
I don't have the desire.
Here.
Yeah. And, and there was another on another one of them. There was a man talking, and he said, going to that downtown theater that Patrick was talking about, and he said he walked in as a young man, and there's this giant Richard Roundtree on top of the theater, with the gun, with the main image with the from the film, and he was like, "Oh my God,
it's one of us swinging in."
Yeah,
kind of that.
Yeah.
And he said something, and I'm going to interpret it a little bit on my own. Shaft is kind of a African American James Bond.
Mm.
He's not a superhero. He's not John Wick going around shooting everybody in the head, and that's not an insult on John Wick. But the more I thought about that, the more I thought about the movie, to me that's who he is. He is an African American James Bond.
He's a bit of
and to think of it, not only is that a huge idea. I'm sorry, Joe, I didn't interrupt you. But not only is that a huge idea, but to think of just everyone, pretty much everyone going to see this movie in its first release, when you had the giant Richard Roundtree, on top of the marquee, and God, they knew how to advertise movies back then. To think about the impact of seeing this powerful, armed Black American hero on top of that marquee, just a few years after everybody who was going to see it could only see a movie from the balcony. Oh my God. I mean, thank goodness I don't know what that was like, but I can imagine.
Yeah.
I think too, it's a bit sort of like a more realistic version of what a Dick Tracy might be too. But he's a lot more grittier and hard edged. It's also, I believe this is pre Dirty Harry, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yeah.
With this, I mean, you could literally look at Shaft and say it literally inspired the gritty detective, saga, if you will. Though we see gritty detectives prior, in a sense. I mean, when you think, but not this gritty. We did see, like, if you go back to the 40s, we did see Humphrey Bogart play some gritty detectives, but not this gritty. Because
Humphrey Bogart's not an outsider,
right?
Or a recent outsider to the law enforcement system.
That's what I'm saying. Like, with this, John Shaft is he's your outsider. He's sort of your outsider / outcast of the law, and he has a badge because he's a detective. He's a private investigator, I should say. He has his own business, his own office. He's his own man, quite literally, in every way, shape, and form. And yes, no one understands him but his woman, and yes, it's in the song. And I'm not done. I just got started. And you have
no one understands you, Joel, but your woman. Continue.
No, that was my son. My woman's at work. She with this you have Richard Roundtree He really delivers a spectacular performance of delivering the dialogue and backing it up with action. And really, the characters around him, the one detective, he puts him over too. He tells his partner, he goes, he can talk the talk, but he can back it up too. That's what he tells his partner, that Shaft can back up his words. And you see that throughout the film, that he has no problem going after somebody to get the job done. And when he's hired for a job, he doesn't just take it. He asks questions. And when he finds out he's been played, he confronts the person who played him, Bumpy, a gangster who lies to him, and he confronts Bumpy on this, which I like.
Well, and there is kind of this weird cyclical irony to a Black American figure of law enforcement, who is a once marginalized, still marginalized figure coming in from outside to impose some order on this world, on a group of people who partly sprang up to be community representatives against corrupt cops, decades before, which, one of the functions that the Italian mafia served. And that's, I'm not smart enough to unpack all of that, but I can recognize it.
What Patrick just said, the first part of it, you can cut that out right there. And I think you described the majority of Westerns, bringing in an outsider to reestablish law and order that these civil leaders, bring in, and to help Joel out. Since we're not doing a Western this week, I'm going to tie this to a Western in another way also. The author, the writer of this film, who is also the author of the books. Let me check him, so I'm going to say his name right. Looks like it's Ernest Tidyman. He wrote this film. He wrote the sequel, Shaft's Big Score. For those of you that don't know, there were 3, and then the third one was Shaft in Africa, and then we'll talk about other things later. But he also wrote not only The French Connection, but High Plains Drifter. That's just for you, Joel. I've had this pulled up for like the last hour because I'm like, I'm going to help Joel out here.
I think the Western Connection is a good one, and it's why when there would be blaxploitation westerns following, they always felt very natural. They just felt like they made sense. That that there is this semi-disenfranchised figure of vengeance that's going to show up and set this culture straight. The only kind of challenge and the only area of potential inauthenticity to it, and really it exists as a thing, and it's important to be acknowledged, and there's not much else that can be done about it, is that there is kind of a questionable layer of authenticity when you have white writers, writing these revolutionary Black stories that, I do wonder how the film would have been different if the film would have been different, how the film would have been different if it had been Black Americans wrote it also. Because, you're always going to get kind of this little bit of distance. And I think the fact that the movie is as powerful as it is and doesn't really come off as condescending is a good thing, because it easily could have been.
I'm going to say the biggest reason that didn't happen, Gordon Parks, the director. I didn't know that much about Gordon Parks until I was watching all the supplements and then was reading. Amazing man, talented man. God knows we could use more of him, in the world and in entertainment. And, to me, that's why this film does not, as much as I love,
what are other notable? It's just what are other Gordon Parks kind of credits? What can we kind of credit him with as well, just to kind of catch us up?
Uno momento. I had it pulled up,
And just so we don't take it as a given, Gordon Parks is black. Right?
Let's see. He was known for photography. Apparently, I can't talk now. Let's jump down here. He named the magazine Photographer of the Year in 1961. He won the NCAA. NCAA awarded him the Spangarian Medal. He, dang it, there's a film, and I cannot think of the title, and I'm trying to read through a very long Wikipedia article. I'm on film. Here we go. The Learning Tree. Semi-autobiographical film is from '69, which I've seen part of. It's actually a very interesting film, and interestingly, it kind of starts off very similar to Shaft. He also did Shaft's big score. He did a film in '76 called Lead Belly, which is a biography of the blues musician Hoodie Ledbetter, I believe. He tried to do a ballad tribute for Martin Luther King Jr. He's also a musician and composer. And when they were showing Isaac Hayes. Him and his band sitting around, and he's like, "All right, come on, guys, let's do it." And they start doing the guitar, and Gordon Parks is sitting there, and he's like, "All right, no, you come in and you do it, and he's sitting right there with Isaac Hayes, and it's like they're both, Isaac Hayes is chipped away, and we see a bit of a man, and then the two of them getting together make the sculpture, if you will.
Mm-hmm. What did you guys? Here's a question for you guys, because I'm sure you guys have seen the Samuel L. Jackson Shaft remake, reboot, whatever you want to call it. Do you guys think Richard Roundtree should have done that movie? He was in it, but should have played Shaft in the movie.
No. And I'll tell you why. There is a vitality to youth, and that if you're talking about in the year 2000, there is just baggage expectations that exist when you get to be a certain age, and you can't get away from half the movie being I'm getting too old for this shit kind of thing. And at that point, it becomes a different movie. It becomes, a geriatric kind of empowerment film or something, and that's fine. And they've made movies like that, with august stars of Black American cinema of the '70s. But that's a real specific thing, and I think getting someone who was vaguely in and around Richard Roundtree's age when Shaft was made, I think is important. I think it sort of keeps it pure, because it removes that age issue from it. That age issue is fine, and I think I didn't see the 2019 movie, but I'm sure it gets brought in as a factor. But that's a different film. I think when you were first kind of rebooting or remaking or sequelizing or whatever it is,
Resequelizing.
Keep it straight. Keep it pretty pure, because that's the less. There's a few random extra factors that were not present in the original Shaft as possible, because you're already dealing with the fact that it's a totally different culture, totally different technology, totally different society, not different in a number of ways, but still so different. You got to ask, what story are we telling?
Yeah. Butch, what do you think?
I think Patrick has a really good point right there. I'm when I first saw it, I was glad to see Richard Roundtree in it, because if you're going to make a movie called Shaft, Richard Roundtree needs to be in it. Okay, not Samuel L. Jackson playing another Samuel L. Jackson character, and that's kind of my biggest problem with it. Because Richard Roundtree has made a lot of good films. Seven jumps to mind, where he's the police chief, or at least that's who Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt report to. On one hand, I'm glad to see that the character Shaft has done better, and he's okay. He's doing. It's kind of like checking in with an old friend you hadn't seen in a long time. The second part, though, is it's like, to me, and there's no nice way to say this, I'm not very fond of Samuel L. Jackson for like the last 20 years. It's like, dude, past time for you to go. And I felt like he was wanting to make Shaft, which is probably a film he watched when he was a young man, maybe a child. I don't know exactly how old Samuel L. Jackson is, and it meant a lot to him, and wanted to come around. But it's like remaking classic horror films, Dawn of the Dead, and then you decide to remake it, and then you choose that name to get an association, and then you get upset with the fans who aren't happy because you didn't remake that film. So it's like, I don't know. If you want to make Samuel L. Jackson do a Shaft film, don't call it Shaft. Nothing else. Call it Shaft Junior. At least we know what we're getting into. So I mean, I'm like I said, on one hand, it's like you haven't seen a friend in a long time, and you're like, oh hey, he's doing good, and that's great. But have I ever watched that film again? No, I have not. And I just recently learned about the other sequel that Patrick was talking about. And
I'm gonna throw something out at you. I think really, I'm gonna go out on a limb. I think the reason you haven't watched that movie again is that as a movie, it's just okay.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
But it's just okay. It's not something that's going to make you go out of the theater saying, "Oh boy, I haven't seen anything like that. I got to see it again." And there have been other Samuel L. Jackson movies that have had that quality. But that wasn't one of them. I think that's the real issue. And I suspect if you had Samuel Jackson down for a cup of coffee, he would probably say, yeah, we did the best we could. That's a lot of lightning that you're trying to capture twice. So I think that's really the issue with that film. I personally, I don't have a problem with Samuel L. Jackson. If you are going to have a younger actor playing Shaft, especially in the year 2000, the list of candidates is not huge. And if you're then looking at, who has the charisma, who has the discipline, who also is a credible action star, that I can perfectly believe is going to beat the shit out of somebody, and have all of those things at once. I think Jackson's a great candidate for the movie, and we also have to sort of take off certain blinders that we have, and one of the major ones is that this is only 5 years after Pulp Fiction, and 2 years before Pulp Fiction, Samuel Jackson was playing a computer nerd in Jurassic Park. And so really we were not entirely used to Samuel L. Jackson as this mega figure who gets hired to play Samuel L. Jackson, just like Sean Connery was hired to play Sean Connery towards the end of his career and everything. You know, I don't think he got to play a character after Robin and Marion. You know, except for the Untouchables. But really, it's like Connery is hired to play the Connery. But one of the problems with Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is that I just don't believe him as this academic. I just keep expecting him to wink at the. Here comes Lincoln. I just keep expecting him to wink at the camera and start punching. Yeah, enough of that. Yeah,
young man,
we all know who you are. You don't have to identify yourself for everyone that way. God, it's like a kaiju. It's Shaft among the kaijus. This is a joke.
That was a King Kong film from about 5 years ago.
Yeah, but yeah, so Samuel L. Jackson had not yet sort of descended into his own cliche, and also at this point there was no Black American Nick Fury. You know, we still had the Steranko Nick Fury. You know, that whole revision of Nick Fury was thanks to Shaft, where, you know, he was drawn exactly the way Shaft was dressed, and I cannot believe this dandruff-soaked feline. I just, it is the bane of my existence. Lincoln, I can tell them stories about your last trip to the vet. I can tell them stories about your last trip to the vet and what you did with that thermometer that would shame you and have you out of this video like that. And I'm not going to.
Here's the thing. I love Samuel L. Jackson, but I think he's a good actor, but he's not the guy I would have casted to play Shaft at the time.
A cat.
To me, like, have you ever seen the movie The Long Kiss Goodnight? To me, Samuel L. Jackson is better as the guy who, now in that movie he plays a private investigator too, but he's working for a client as well. He's trying to figure out what's going on with her and why she can't remember everything. He's better as somebody who's trying to figure out what's going on, and he's more your reluctant hero than the John Shaft kick in the door type hero, in my opinion. Like, I love his character in Die Hard 3. He's a father of two. He's this guy who owns his own store. The guy who I thought should have played John Shaft was Vin Rames. To me, in my opinion, Vin Rames would have been a better John Shaft. Now you could say, well, Vin Rames.
I thought you were going to say Ricardo Montalban. I'm really.
No. I mean, you can make the case that Vin Rames isn't a huge star really at the time, but he is a name that is known too. And I think he would have been just a better fit for the role. I mean, do I care that Christian Bale's in this movie? No, not really.
You want a John Shaft who would absolutely, I think in some ways, have the revolutionary quality of Richard Roundtree, just in terms of making. Samuel L. Jackson has such a good sense of humor that it's you could see him just as easily using irony to diffuse a situation. And Shaft is not an ironic character. I mean, he does crack a lot of jokes in the movie Shaft, but there is still an edge of business. Michael Clark Duncan knocking down a door or coming through a window is a sight that would make every single human on Earth take that moment extremely seriously. I would have really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Big actor. Really, really good actor, too. What did you guys think of the plot for the original Shaft versus the plot for Samuel L. Jackson's Shaft?
I don't remember the plot to Samuel L. Jackson. He might have been judging a beauty contest for all I know. He might have been just acting out the cards in Monopoly that Mr. Monopoly does. I don't remember at all. I think he enforces the law and kisses a girl. That's all that's all. I was when I saw that movie too. We had a place that served beer at movies. Remember that place on Mohican? That's where I saw it. So I was 3 sheets to the wind.
Yeah, I remember a little bit more. I remember he throws his badge at a judge, and I'm like, no, your ass is under the prison after that. And Christian Bale is trading insults with somebody I think he kills, and the guy like takes a napkin and cuts 2 eye holes and goes, "Oh, here, you forgot your sheet." I remember that. And not that the plot to the original Shaft it's not Shakespeare, but it's good. Yeah. It's a simple plot. One of the things I've grown to hate about films over the past couple of decades is every movie has to be the end of the world, and if we fail at anything, every human is going to die. It's like, it's okay.
And it has to have a lot of moving parts. These plots have to have lots of moving parts and wheels within wheels, and sometimes it's just nice to have a story that unfolds logically with one main character, and you follow them from cause and effect, and then you get to go home, and you're not there, 3 hours later.
Is this a noir film?
I hate him. Is it? Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, maybe it don't have all the accoutrements.
Yeah, sure. Yes, it has that grittiness. Yeah. It has that sense of life on a level of immediate needs and immediate threats. Sure. And you got a detective instead of a technical cop, and he's wearing a long coat. Yeah, that's film noir.
You're if you had to write, we used to talk about the back of VHS boxes, the quick blurb would be: a detective is hired to find a mobster's kidnapped daughter. Well, in the tradition of noir, that's what starts the story off. Like you could say, a detective for Big Sleep, a detective is hired to make a blackmailer go away. Is that what Big Sleep's about? No. And then you find out, well, the gangster has something going on, and the mafia's involved, and he's using Shaft, and Shaft's like, we're going to use you, and
wheels within wheels.
Yes.
The Big Sleep is a movie so complicated that even the people making it, in the middle of it, didn't know what the hell was going on. And I think they went to Faulkner and said, "You're talking about wheels within wheels." Went to Faulkner and said, "Hey, wait a minute, what's happening? What happened to the chauffeur?" I don't know. No idea.
But you want to know what a good film is? There's two things I say about being a good film. One of the reasons I believe The Big Sleep is one of the greatest films of all time. Half the time I don't know what's going on, and I don't care, because it's telling such an interesting story.
Yeah, but my definition of a good movie actually goes with that. You either have interesting people doing something unusual, or you have normal people doing something, or you have interesting people doing something normal and giving it a twist, or you have normal people embroiled in something really interesting, or if you're a really gutsy filmmaker, you have interesting people doing something really unusual. And if you're able to get one of those two things, or that magic combination, you're cooking with gas.
That's the thing too. Like The Big Sleep, I agree with you. It's an interesting movie because of the characters. You're fascinated by the characters and what's going on with them. Shaft, you are fascinated with the characters and what's going on with them. And right, noir. It's a very gritty movie. I give this movie a 10. I mean, it is really entertaining
yeah.
from start
Oh
to finish.
yeah.
It's not boring, and for as interesting as Shaft is, the detective who he talks to is interesting too. He's given him time to do what he needs to do, but he tells him, "Hey, there might be some consequences to all this that's going to happen here. You know, we got people shooting each other and stuff." And I love the fact that when he confronts the mob boss about him lying to him, he goes, "You knew who kidnapped your daughter. You know, you used me." And I think Shaft had realized that the moment. I'd like to think that Richard Roundtree Shaft realized that the moment he went after the one guy to begin with, when he got into the building and realized, yeah, something's not right here. What do you guys give this movie?
Oh, it's a 10. I mean, you're really honestly talking about, you know, one of the greatest movies that kicked off the greatest decade Hollywood ever had.
Yeah, the 70s.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's a 10. I mean, you know, we were doing Cahill U.S. Marshal, and we're saying it's not a bad film, but it just was kind of disjointed.
Yeah.
That is not Shaft. Shaft is not
Here's-
disjointed.
Here's one of the acid tests on Shaft is, you know, and I haven't shown this movie to students in a number of years, so, you know, take this as you will. But I can show this movie now to just about anyone, and even if they have an age kind of prejudice, oh, when was this movie made, and it's that kind of stuff, which I love hearing. If you give them a half hour into the movie and they get over kind of whatever, you know, camp jokes they think they're going to make at its expense, all of that stops and they're enjoying the movie.
I'm going to make
and they're pulled into the film.
I'm going to make an odd comparison, but I feel it's warranted. Shaft, in a way, makes me think of Night of the Living Dead, because both of them jump-started what became a genre, and they're both just damn good films that, due to, you know, a lot of talent behind the screen and on the screen, they turned out okay. And if things were different, both of these films could have been lost. Both of those films would have been just lost, and nobody knew about them.
Yeah.
Well, and you also have, you know, I mean, they're made very close to each other in time, and just a few years away from each other, and they both feature, you know, Black American heroes, you know, really being the only characters of legitimate, who are awake, who have legitimate common sense in the midst of a world of just kind of not quite seeing what's really going on. Shaft is a very aware figure. Yeah, I think one of the things that we like about him, and that we want to emulate about him, is the fact that he is 2 steps ahead of everything, and that's one of the things that really is so. And thank God Richard Roundtree just nails it.
Nailed it.
Is there anything you guys want to add about the movie Shaft before we go?
It's great. Go watch it. Stop listening to us and go watch it.
Go watch it.
I had 2 reasons to suggest this film. One, as I've told you both, I got this disc and I knew this was going to be the only way I could watch it. 2, and Patrick probably already knows this, the reason I wanted to do it tonight, well, now last night and going in today, it's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
So I wanted to, you know, be with you guys.
You scamp, you got one over on me again. Well, there's a copy of Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound with your name on it that I got. So seriously.
Happy birthday, Butch.
Thank you, gentlemen.
For next week's pick, I'm going to pick a movie that is Not your typical Western. It stars Jimmy Stewart. It's called The Naked Spur.
The Naked Spur.
Yes. So that'll be next week. Patrick, tomorrow we are doing the My Favorite Year movie.
I've been promoting this movie for you for a long time, Jewel. So I'm glad you finally watched it.
I watched it on YouTube. Really, really good. I think you, because I don't think your students appreciate movies. What I really think you should show them is the best of Lincoln shaking his ass. Really.
Cinema verite.
That's right.
It's the latest impression from France.
It's a slice of real. It's a slice of real life.
Oh, guys, enjoy the rest of your night. Butch, have a happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good night, guys.